This is chapter 4. We get adopted en route to Rishikesh, which is a city in North India that they're going to. Connaught Place was the only place in Delhi to get a real cup of coffee. "Are you sure it's not powdered?" I asked the waiter. "Not Nescafe?" Despite implicitly trusting the vegetarianness of Indian food, I was still grilling waiters half a world away. "No, ma'am, filter coffee," he reassured. Our first morning in India, and I had found a place with real coffee. We sat in a restaurant overlooking the circular center of New Delhi. Connaught Place, or Connaught Circle as it's called, nearly correctly, for it's actually 2 concentric circles, inner and outer. American Express, Citibank, travel agents, and touristy restaurants line the circumference. I pulled out the Lonely Planet guide and flipped through the pages. "Let's go to Rishikesh," I said. "It seems nice. It's only a few hours from Delhi, and they have a lot of yoga programs. It's on a river and at the base of the mountains, so we can get to the mountains too. Also," I added, "it's full of ashrams and gurus," which is true. Just like that, simple and seemingly inconsequential. How did you come to Rishikesh? People would later ask, expecting a fantastic story in which I had dreamed of meditating in the Himalayas while the word Rishikesh flashed across my mind. But rather than manifest in a vision, it appeared in actual ink on top of the page to which my fingers were drawn in a guidebook I skimmed through over a cup of filtered coffee. My husband, Jim, reached for the book and read about Rishikesh. "Sure," he said. "Sounds great. There are so many ashrams to choose from. We should probably book a hotel and scout out the situation when we get there." He continued to read and added, "Badrinath is supposed to be a sacred temple, and it's straight up the mountain from Rishikesh. All the jeeps and buses leave for Rishikesh, so we can go to Badrinath too." After a few days of sightseeing in Delhi, we headed to Rishikesh on a quote-unquote luxury bus that wasn't luxurious at all. I sat next to 2 girls who went to school in Delhi, and we were returning home to a city called Roorkee. They were in their mid-teens and exhibited a blend of the gregarious diffidence I had encountered only in young Indian girls. Internally, they bubbled with exuberance, but they had been so acculturated to be demure, very demure, that excitement seemed to push the edges of their modesty. I could feel the thin layer of propriety loosen as they bent across each other to practice their English on me and ask every imaginable question, ranging from, "How many sisters and brothers do you have?" to, "What do you think about our country, India?" to, "What did you eat for breakfast in America?" As someone with a lifelong history of motion sickness, I need to sit in the front of any vehicle, and even at the very front, waves of nausea usually overtake me. I try to avoid travel by road unless it's a straight shot, which this wasn't. I was therefore not in the mood to chat. It took all my attention and my will not to vomit. But these girls were enthusiastic conversationalists. They talked continuously about their school, the hostel they lived in, the drab food served there. They couldn't wait to get home to eat Mum's cooking. And they wanted to know everything about me, past, present, and future. What will you do in Rishikesh? Do you study yoga? Will you have children? How many children do you want? Do you want boys or girls? During the 3rd or 4th hour, they endeared themselves to me when they persuaded the driver to pull over so I could pee in the dirt along the side of the highway. An avid water drinker and infrequent bus traveler, it didn't occur to me that I'd have to hold my bladder for hours. The driver ignored my request in English and only when the two of them implored him in Hindi did he slow down and pull over. Their home city of Roorkee, they explained, was an hour and a half from Rishikesh. They would not, under any circumstances, allow us to continue to Rishikesh that day. "You absolutely must come home with us," they declared. As the bus driver had given in to their demands, so did Jim and I. It's like when you ask your mom if we can take the stray cat or dog home. "Please, please, Mom, can we bring these Americans home?" "Don't you have to ask your parents?" I asked. Speaking of which, I could only imagine my own parents' faces if I had come home with two foreign strangers. "Of course not," they exclaimed. "They will be so happy to have you." The bus stopped at Roorkee and we alighted along with them. They guided us to a bicycle rickshaw. I had seen these in Delhi, but hadn't ridden in one. A male driver sits on the bicycle seat and pedals, while up to 8 passengers sit in a carriage mounted on the back. It seemed cruel to make him haul so much weight while balancing a rusty bicycle, but the motorized rickshaws we'd ridden in Delhi were nowhere to be found, and so we reluctantly agreed. After bouncing across dirt paths and gravel roads for half an hour, we arrived at a long, narrow road with brightly colored homes on both sides, and at the end was their family's 2-story concrete home. Let's pause our reading of Hollywood to Himalayas there for now. We are getting closer to the Himalayas, since she is now in India on her way to Rishikesh, which is at the foothills of the Himalayas. These chapters are pretty short, but I think we can finish up this 4th chapter next time as we see what happens when they come into the hospitality of this presumably lovely Indian family. Thank you for listening.